Ruben here and welcome to this week's Samplecast. Tons in the show this week. We've got a composer interview with Sid De La Cruz where he's going to dish the dirt on Trevor Morris and Hans Zimmer. And we've also got a review of a new piano library from Synthogy. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Of course, there's also developer updates, freebies, bargains, and we're going to kick off with this week's news. First up, Thrill from Native Instruments and Galaxy Instruments, and my goodness, this is getting some great feedback online, so it's only fair that I kick off the show with a little look at this one. It's a collaboration between Galaxy Instruments, you might remember those from Unicorner and The Giant, and also Native Instruments as well. It's a real-time cluster and aleatoric effects composer, runs in Kontakt Player 5.6.8 and above, and has 41 gigabytes of uncompressed content in there. The engine combines various sound sources, so you've got orchestral performances, hybrid sources, and also electronic gubbins as well. And you can see on the interface there's an XY pad to manipulate the intensity and mix of those sound sources. There are hundreds of presets here and 963 sound sources in total, so a pretty huge library. I especially like the look of the cluster builder, where you can create your own different intervals for the cluster notes, and there's also randomization options in there. I love that too. Now, although I haven't got my own hands on this library yet, there are some very comprehensive walkthroughs available online, so do take a look at those. I've been pretty impressed by what I've seen so far, and hopefully you will be too. From the sublime to the ridiculous, and this is Easy Spoons by Loops de la Creme. Now, my granddad used to play the spoons, and when I was a little kid I tried to play them too, and to be honest I failed miserably. So now I can pretend that I'm just as proficient as him with Easy Spoons. Well, there's 3 different instruments here for the full version of Kontakt 5.3 and above. It's a small library, just 45 megabytes in size, but it contains 3 different types of spoons and loads of different velocity layers, round robins, and some tempo synced grooves too. It's super cheap at just €8 at the moment and for the next couple of weeks. And at that price, to be honest, it's barely more expensive than real life cutlery. So don't be a spoon, do check it out at the Loops de la Creme website. Slate Digital have added 3 new plugins to their collection, available now as part of their all-you-can-eat subscription service, or you can purchase them outright as well. These plugins can be used as preamps, saturators, or anytime you need analog warmth and colour. They're named London, New York and Hollywood, and they all sound big, warm and rich. You've got controls here for dry and wet mix, there's boost controls, filters and saturation level gain as well. All of those controls are on all 3 units. I haven't tried them out myself, but knowing the standard of most of the Slate plugins, I'm sure they're worth looking into. Do have a look at the Slate Digital website. There's been so much retro goodness out over the last couple of weeks, and this is another one. It's SYNDR 1 from Millertone. This is a multi-sample drum machine instrument for the full version of Kontakt 5.4.3 and above. And you've got 8,600 samples here that have been derived from the distinctive synth tom sounds of the 1970s SYNDR PS3 hardware. Now you've got 1.2 gigabytes of content here, it's 28 full drum kits, and also you've got 62 chromatic instrument presets which cover instruments such as basses, keys, lead, sequencers, and plenty more too. There's also bonus MIDI loops included, and the interface has FX sends for each drum kit element, and also a whole load of master effects for tweaking the sound too. The chromatic instruments have a different interface with some modelling controls and effects, so do have a look at the Millertone website for details. Just a couple of bargains this week, and the first is a Wavesfactory bundle from Audio Plugin Deals. I'm a big fan of Wavesfactory's products, and I've covered their ukulele and Shireen shakers in previous Samplecast episodes. This collection brings together 6 of their best instruments, including the ukulele, the shakers, as I just mentioned, and also cymbals, samba drums, a Marxophone, and Ludwig drum kit. The optimistic retail value is advertised at over $400, maybe take that with a pinch of salt, but now it's 76% off at $99.99. Click the link in the show notes for full details. Guess what? Native Instruments have got a summer sale. Colour me unsurprised. Complete 11 and Ultimate are currently 50% off. They seem to do that at this time of year every single year, so it's no massive shock. But it's a nice way of expanding your instruments far more cheaply than usual if you're a big fan of Native Instruments. Do have a look at the Native Instruments site for full details. This week's composer interview is with Sid De La Cruz, who this week has allowed us to peek into his composing world as he puts the score together for a brand new movie. He's previously worked with Hans Zimmer and Trevor Morris, and this week's interview gives a really interesting insight into the working processes of both of those composers and obviously Sid himself. You can download the extended Samplecast podcast to hear that, along with demo tracks and more music examples for all of the libraries and plugins that have been featured in this week's show. This week's big freebie is Church Organ from Nils Neumann. Now, thanks to Nils for contacting me and letting me know about this new organ library, which he's put together himself. It's terribly impressive for a freebie. He's currently hosting the download links on the VI control board, and you can have a look at the link in the show notes. This free organ runs in the full version of Kontakt and has 8 different patches. There's 5 microphone positions that have been recorded and 3 round robins per note. It's a really generous offer. If you haven't already got a church organ, you could do a lot worse than pick this one up. Do check it out at the link in the show notes. This week's big review is Ivory II Studio Grands from Synthogy. This is a brand new piano collection from them and extends their piano range by adding 2 new models. You've got here a Steinway Model B Grand and a Bosendorfer 225 Grand piano. It's also the first set of pianos from them to ship with Synthogy's new 2.5 Ivory engine. I'll be coming onto that a little bit more later. To download the pianos, you'll need 112 gigabytes of free hard drive space. The Ivory engine runs in Mac and PC, both in standalone and as plugins for AU, AAX and VST. For the exact specifications, do check the Synthogy site, but I can tell you that there's up to 24 velocity layers here, harmonic modelling, the soft pedalling level adjustment, you've got key and release samples and soundboard emulation, plus lots more options and effects. I'll explain some of those as we go through the review. So how did I get on with this library? Well, first off, the downloading and installing was pretty easy using Synthogy's own downloading software, and it gave me the option to put the huge amount of sample content on a different drive than the plugin itself, so extra marks for that for sure. Once you've registered an iLock or with iLock verification on your computer, then it should be good to go. Each of the 2 pianos here has 20 different presets to get you going, so we'll start off by hearing a few of those. So that was just some of the basic presets. Let's have a squiz at the interface. There are 4 pages which cover global session controls, including transposing, pitch, tuning, velocity maps and half pedaling. There's the program page for loading the pianos and tweaking the resonance, soundboard, key and release samples. You've also got key sets in there, and you can also add a synth layer. The effects page is for adding master effects such as chorus, EQ, reverb and filter. And finally, there's a preference page as well. I found the interface easy to figure out. I've never used an Ivory piano library before, so it's pretty easy to see exactly what all the buttons and sliders do. It's fairly intuitive, if a little dated looking in its design. Now let's get onto that new 2.5 Ivory engine that I mentioned earlier. Firstly, you can now register on your machine without a physical iLock. That's really good stuff. The new shimmer control extends to the upper harmonics of the sustain portion of the notes, and I had a nice time fiddling with that to kind of extend the resonance of the sound. There's also a half pedalling mode, which is new to the 2.5 update. So let's talk about the sound under the hood. The Bose is rich, warm and full-bodied in the low end. To me, the Model B is more versatile and more transparent sounding. However, with all of the presets and the tweaking on board, you can change these basic timbres dramatically. There's virtually no noise in any of the samples, however many notes you play simultaneously, so there was no kind of noise floor build-up. There are some specific things that I liked. I especially like playing with the synth layer controls, where you can add one of 8 different synth pads to play alongside the pianos. To be honest, they all sound a little bit on the cheesy kind of 80s, 90s R&B side, but actually I don't mind that. It's quite a nice sound. It's cool that the preset system remembers if you edit a preset, and you can recall it directly next time, or you can reset it as well. There's also the lid position control and stereo perspective controls, and I found these to be quite neat for switching up the sound. I have to mention that each of the 2 pianos actually has several different sets of samples recorded, so browsing through these gives so many variations in tone. If you don't like the presets, just flick to a different sample set and you'll find the sound varies dramatically. A few quibbles: I'd have liked to have seen the default settings give more than 24 voices. You can increase this manually very easily, but after I got over about 100 voices, my system started to fall over, so do watch out for your CPU usage here. Also, some of the presets aren't the best sounding and needed a little bit of tweaking to get them to sound their best and to my taste. And essentially for me, that's what a new piano library is all about these days. It's taste. If you like the core sound of the 2 pianos, I don't think you'll find a more comprehensive package. Certainly in all of the many piano sample libraries that I own, nothing has the versatility of this new engine, nor the iconic sound of these 2 specific model pianos, which really have been expertly captured and post-processed to perfection. This is definitely a recommendation. Thanks so much to Time and Space for supplying me with a copy. Do check it out at Time and Space or the Synthogy website. There's a few really significant developer updates about this week, so not just the usual nips and tucks on interfaces, actually libraries that have been hugely updated with new content. First up, it's Handheld Sound's Mad RocknFunk. Now, Handheld Sound have updated their Mad Drums package here to include 3 new drum kits. You've got up to 20 velocity layers here and many round robins and articulations. These kits are geared up for rock, pop and funk music, and each has been recorded in a different space with different microphone setups, which gives each of the kits a unique sound. There's an upgrade offer for existing Mad Drums users, and the concepts from Handheld Sound's previous releases are back and in effect, including interface controls for hi-hat performance and microphone bleed as well. Check it out at the Handheld Sound website. A quick mention for this updated package from Dream Audio Tools. It's Dream Rythms, spelt wrongly, number 2. This interface has been revamped with new features, and it now contains 120 different NKI patches too. You've got 22 new playable multis and loads more onboard effects than before. It does require the full version of Contact, and you can check it out at the Dream Audio Tools website. Dark Matter 2 from String Audio is a brand new update which adds 15 gigabytes of extra content and now has a redesigned interface too. I was a big fan of the original soundscape and atmosphere creator Dark Matter. I did review it back in Samplecast episode 28 and gave it a good write-up, and since it's had some major updates, and I feel very happy to recommend this version too. Do click the link in the show notes for details. Thanks so much for tuning into the Samplecast. That was episode 46. I'll be back again next week with a new show. Bye bye for now.